The B78 Coaching Podcast takes a quick dive into the lives of athletes at all levels. Short and sweet, the goal is to help you troubleshoot some of the common issues and questions around training in a time-efficient manner. Welcome to the B78 Coaching Podcast. We have Sommer joining us today. You have such a lovely name. It's such a nice time of year. Were you born in the summer?
December 26th.
Okay, so you were born at the opposite end of, unless you're down south.
No.
In New Zealand. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yes, good. I mean, strange times at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one of the challenging things you found is, like a lot of people, you're not working at the moment. And I remember our conversations a couple of weeks ago. We're like, oh, you're super amped because you're like, I'm going to have all this time in the world now to get some training done. And in fact, the opposite has been true. It's been actually quite challenging. Hey,
very challenging. Quite a surprise challenging. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think what's the most challenging part for you?
Well, for me, having young children at home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's a whole other energy with that I wasn't prepared for. I did think I was going to have hours upon hours a day to travel, to train and focus on my training. And really, it's probably half of what I was doing before, because
Right.
they need me. They need my attention. And I actually remember saying to you, I have some weights in the gym. I'll throw a movie on for them and I'll get my strength training in. And that hasn't happened once.
Yeah. It's hard. And I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people are in the same boat where suddenly your entire family unit, for the most part, most people, is at home now. And even though we're not working, we suddenly have like all this human energy consolidated in one place. And it's actually really challenging. I mean, we found that as well. Our kids are home, obviously, like pretty much everybody everywhere. And it's really hard to almost create space for yourself in those moments. And I think we talked about that. I've found that challenging too, is just finding the space that we used to take for granted. And that might have even been when you went to work.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Where you had even the drive to work or the walk to work. I don't know how you get to work, but even just that little bit of alone time sometimes is good for us. Mm-hmm. Have you found that challenging?
Absolutely. I work from home. So for me, it was great. My kids down the stairs, but the walk to school to drop my kids off. And then I had the entire walk home by myself. Don't have that time anymore. And just, when they were at school, I had hours, even if I wasn't working, to, sit down and do a meditation or clean the house. And it's just not happening. And so there's been this big shift and grieving the loss of some of the things, some of that freedom and the loss of my career potentially now. And there's a lot of big emotions attached to all of that. And yeah, we're just grieving, a lot of grieving. And I know that we're not alone. Everyone in the world is sort of impacted in the same way. So it's definitely interesting times.
Yeah. And I think the uncertainty that goes with everything is also tough. Like we don't have a timeline. It's nice to have a clear timeline. Like if you knew this was going to definitely end in 3 weeks, you could kind of buckle down. What's that?
The not knowing is hard.
The not knowing is very hard. And, so, the thing I think we have talked about, which I think is really important and not necessarily easy, is to find ways to create that space for yourself. So, when you have that emotional energy, the grieving, as you put it, like that, there's a lot of loss right now. There's sort of loss of job, loss of income, loss of kids' school, loss of social interactions, especially with the kids and their friends. We've lost a lot of that, and that emotional energy can be pretty heavy, and it can be really tiring. And I think what you kind of went through, and probably a lot of people too, is in that first week or two when you think it's going to be one thing, but you actually find you're probably pretty exhausted, and you're like, where am I going to find the time and energy to actually physically exert myself in a workout? Did you find that a little bit?
Absolutely. We were exhausted for sure. I feel like the change was, we had to adapt to that change. And so for definitely the first week, I didn't carve out as many workouts as I thought because I was exhausted. I was sleeping a ton. And I think now that we're getting into a bit more of a routine, my energy's come back up. But my kids are still exhausted, and I still
Mm.
think that they're needing more oomph, and I'm starting to get to them to that.
Yeah. I think there's an exhaustion that comes from having less to do almost. Like we were kind of talking about this before we started. But there's a tiredness that comes if they don't get connection with
Mm-hmm.
their friends.
Yeah.
I really noticed that with our kids. They, a lot of times, even after a really full, busy day with school and sports or whatever they're doing after school, they're more energized because they've had this great interaction with other people and their friends, and that kind of lifts them up. That's been really challenging too. You notice that?
For sure. Yeah. And that,
Mm-hmm.
I think I said to this too, that connection is a biological imperative. And we have connection, we can chat on Zoom, we have our spouses, but our kids don't have their peers per se. And so they don't have their output, and they don't have that biological connection that they need. And I just think that without the output, they're sort of spinning a little bit out. My kid, for sure, is spinning a little bit out of control. We're trying to rein her in, but without her hockey, without her soccer, without her dance, she's a bit of a wildcat.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the interesting thing with kids, and the reason I like talking about kids is because I feel like a lot of times as adults we're just big kids. We suppress a lot of stuff, so we kind of need the same things. And when they don't get that, like interaction, human interaction for most kids is like human interaction. Like at school, in the playground, playing sports, whatever they're doing, it's like we're in person. And our kids are doing some homeschooling stuff and they have to be on Zoom and all these online platforms, and sure, they're getting a little bit of a connection,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just different. It's different enough. And I think there's a fatigue that goes along with that. They're just missing that kind of energy.
It's exhausting. The whole thing is exhausting. And
Mm-hmm.
they're smart little cookies, those kids, and they know. And I think it's just so big for them. Their little brains can't really handle it. They can't
Mm-hmm.
really take it in and make sense of it. And so, and they sense our stress too. It's stressful. We go to the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store, I go to the grocery store, and it's stressful. I don't want to touch anything, It's just,
Yeah.
the whole thing is exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, having the output now, like, and after we had our good chat last week and you kind of reined me in, because I'm a big kid, I've been able to dial in my workouts a bit and use that energy for good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we really touched on was, especially for you, you're at home. You
Mm-hmm.
got these two young balls of energy, and it's really important that you are creating space for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as that can feel selfish because, you've got these two other human beings that you're, caring for, and you really want to make sure they're not just sitting on screens all day,
Mm-hmm.
it can feel selfish to create that time for yourself, but ultimately it'll make you better functioning in there. So I think that was the big takeaway that we had. And sometimes when if I'm talking to you about that stuff, I'm saying it to myself as much as anything, you know?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I think that was the big takeaway. And it sounds like this week has been a little bit better.
Well, I made it an appointment in my calendar. It was easy, I'll do that. I have the entire day. And if I missed it in the morning, thought, well, I'll just get it when my husband comes home from work, and I have this whole day to fit all these things in. And at the end of the day, how did that happen? And so now I'm scheduling them in. and it's getting done no matter what. If that means I'm going to bed a little bit later or getting up a little bit earlier, it's happening, and it's so much better. Yeah, it's so much better.
I just love that strategy, because when the world is functioning as normal, we are on a schedule.
Absolutely.
Like things start at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're meeting a group or whatever, it's starting at a certain time. So there's an accountability factor. And it's so easy when there's not that to just slip into whatever, whenever. And typically what happens, it's inertia, right? Like inertia pulls you to like not doing as much. It's like we always default to the lowest energy state.
Yes.
And it's hard to kind of create that structure, but I think it's so important. And I love your strategy of actually putting it in the calendar. Like I have a bike ride I'm going to do, or a run, or whatever it is, and it's in the calendar. And this is the the non-negotiable part of my day. Now, of course, if an emergency comes up, that's different. But if you make it the non-negotiable part of your day, just like an appointment, just like a work appointment, like you would never, someone books in with you, you'd never just miss it.
Yeah.
You'd be there because you have an accountability. So I love that strategy. And I think that's a really good strategy for other people who may be struggling to fit in the training or the workouts, to just pick a time, put it in your calendar, and do it. Yeah. Sounds simple. It's hard sometimes.
It does sound simple, but making it a priority, I think, is the priority. Like you said, making myself more important. Like I refer to putting my own oxygen mask on all the time.
That's a great analogy. I love that.
If I don't do that, then I'm not going to be a good mom. I'm not going to be a good partner. I'm not going to be able to contribute to society in the way that I think I can. And so taking care of myself is pretty imperative. But also mental health. It helps with my mental health. It helps with my fitness. Like my pants are getting tight already. My quarantine 15. God, I miss swimming. I miss the pool.
Yeah.
I miss it so much. I almost bought a pool from Walmart.
Oh my gosh. Did you really?
I almost did.
What kind of pool do you get at Walmart?
Well, just those little dinky ones.
Yeah.
You get the swim tether and you tie it around your waist.
Oh, wow. That's next level quarantine commitment.
I almost did.
Yeah.
But then I thought about the germs.
Fair enough.
And I'm germaphobe.
Right. Yeah, this isn't a good time to be a germaphobe.
Not so much.
No. This is like as heightened as it gets if you're a germaphobe. And even I'm sort of probably right on the border of germaphobe, non-germaphobe, but just like you said, if I go to the grocery store, I'm quite hypersensitive afterwards. Yeah. This is great. I think just this little takeaway for people is going to be so valuable if they're struggling to kind of find a rhythm in this space. I like the idea of having a rhythm, and life, when it's normal, it kind of establishes a rhythm for us, because things start at certain times, especially with kids, their school or their programs or whatever. They start at certain times. So that helps us establish a rhythm. And now when there's no schedule, it's like, how are you going to make that rhythm? For myself, I'm not training for anything specific, but my rhythm is I'm up in the morning and the first thing that happens is a workout, because I know if I do that, everything's better. Yes. My mental energy's better. I physically feel better. I'm more productive. My outlook on life is so different. And even if it's just a 30-minute run, everything shifts for me. Like, it's way better. So, but if I miss that, I think we froze there. Did we freeze?
Yes.
You froze a little bit. That's okay. You were in a nice position. I don't know what position I was in. I think it would be really fun if you knew you were going to freeze so you could do something interesting. And then I have no idea what would have been recorded in that frozen moment, but it doesn't matter.
It sounded like a tune. It sounded like the new Trolls movie soundtrack.
Fair enough.
Which we have playing on repeat. Oh my gosh.
Oh, the Trolls 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna watch that tomorrow night. That's on. Is it good?
Yeah, we've seen it 4 times.
Oh, cool. Wow. Yeah. Like most kids movies, they just go on repeat.
Well, we rented it paid $20 or whatever it was for the 48 hours, which was
Oh,
ridiculous.
wow.
And so we have to get our money's worth.
Yeah, you better have that thing on repeat. That's quite an expensive rental online.
Yeah, but the way we thought about it is we would have gone to the movie, which would have
Yes,
cost $50,
true.
and they didn't plan on this pandemic happening, so they have to make some money. So I said,
Yeah.
"Here's $20."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair enough. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Anyway, when I got frozen, I was just saying the value of having rhythm, and for me, it's even the little things like making my bed in the morning. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this sounds like a crazy thing because who cares? Like, we're not going out anywhere. There's no guests coming over. Like, who cares? But if I have just those little habits that establish a great rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
everything is different. I just feel better all around. And it sounds like you've been able to do that.
Trying to. Well, your workouts in the morning have really helped with that. The spin class, especially today's spin class, did me in.
Good.
So,
Good.
but having the accountability of having that set time, like I know at 7 o'clock I have to be on my bike. Can't be at 7:05. It has to be at 7.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it was just me, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll have another cup of coffee or whatever. So it's nice to have that accountability there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, have you found it, you've got kids and a partner as well. So have they been pretty understanding? Like if you say, look, you know what, I just really need this time
Mm-hmm.
for me, and then I'll be better as everything else I need to be. Has that been pretty good?
They know me pretty well.
Yeah.
And I know when my husband says, go for a run, it's time to go for a run.
Yes.
Yeah, they're very supportive. And having a partner who's also a triathlete and a trail runner, he understands, he gets it. And my kids don't know any different. They've
Right.
always, that's their life. Mom's a triathlete. Mom's out for a run, mom's out for a bike. That's just the way it is. But now that I'm indoors more, I do get interrupted quite a bit. So we just have to lie and say I'm out.
Yeah. Oh, so you have a separate space that you can
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
do it. I think that's really important too.
Mm-hmm.
Is having a space that, if you can, if you have, if you're lucky enough to have that,
Yeah.
it's really great idea. Somewhere where even if it's just a different part of the room, where
Mm-hmm.
the intent of that part of the room is different,
Yeah.
makes a massive difference. So I would encourage people to do that too. It's just like, yoga mats are like that. You can have any room in the world,
Absolutely.
and if you put a yoga mat in that room, I think we're frozen again. The interweb superhighway
Yeah.
is just disastrous today. But if you put a yoga mat in any room, you're establishing a space that has a different kind of intent. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a yoga instructor. This is one thing. She told me this years ago, and it stuck with me. And I've told tons of my clients the same thing. It's about the intent. And so she said, even if you just make the you're rolling out your mat, that's your intention. Even if you just roll out your mat, you don't necessarily need to do an hour-long class. Just roll out your mat, and that has stuck with me because maybe I'm not going to go for an hour and a half run. Maybe I go for a 20-minute run, burn off some steam. I'm still rolling out my mat. And again, every little bit helps. I know that the longer distances and longer times are better, but sometimes we don't have that in our time or budget or effort. So even just a little bit of effort, I think is better than none.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really love that. I love that a yogi person said that rolling out your mat establishes intention, because now I feel smart that I said the same thing.
Just roll out your mat.
It's so true. I find another great habit is like, if I want to go for a run the next morning, if I just lay out my running clothes like at the foot of the bed, so I don't have to find them in the dark in the morning, I can literally roll out of bed and put them on. The chances of me actually following through are like way higher than
Mm-hmm.
if I have all this resistance to figure out, how to pull it off.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing. Like if you're setting the intent the night before. Anyway, I think this has been great. No, you were going to say something else.
Well, I was going to say, I even have my little water bottle system. I fill it the night before and I put it in the fridge.
I love it. See, something as simple as that. So you're not scrambling in the morning trying to solve that part of the ride puzzle. Every time there's a little bit of resistance to that kind of habit or that action happening, it makes it harder. And especially right now where we don't have structure and schedule and all these things, the more you can do to lessen the resistance of that happening, like the more chance it's going to happen, and the better you'll feel because you'll get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think too, having a purpose. So all of our races are canceled right now. We don't know when there's going to be races, but we still want to have a purpose to our workout. And so if I just got on my bike indoors and I was riding on Zwift, I maybe would last 20 minutes. But having a set workout, I plug it into Zwift, it's all done, it's all taken care of, and I get on my bike and I can just ride. And I don't have to worry about anything. I know what I'm going to be doing, and I'm motivated to get through it.
Yeah, I love that too, because again, it just establishes a higher level of intent for that whole session. Yeah, you're so right. I'm the greatest example of someone who, like on the same kind of note, I get out for my run or my workout, but because I don't have like a target, I don't really have a purpose. And if I'm not careful, I go out and I just run the same pace all the time and I run the same loop every time. So I have to kind of consciously like insert things into my running to make it a little bit more interesting and change up my paces or go a different route, just to sort of, enhance the experience. But you're so right. If you don't have, the purpose for all of this has been taken away for a lot of people without start lines, but you can still have a really strong purpose in what you're trying to establish with the training. So we're still trying to get fit here, and it's still like pointing at like increasing fitness levels, and like that's really important. And to understand that intent and that purpose still exists even without the start lines is really important.
Well, for me, the start line's a bonus. I love racing. I absolutely love it, but it is a bonus. And I'm grateful for every start line, but the start line is a little bit different right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's maybe sometime in the future. Maybe. I love to, I'll just sort of finish up with this. And that's the idea that, right now I think I was talking to somebody else about the same thing, but we don't have a start line. So that sense of purpose is taken away, but we also can just get better at the thing. That in itself is good enough, training. Yeah. Training for the sake of itself, like for the sake of the activity itself, just finding the joy in the activity itself. Yeah. Like this is a much deeper purpose in a way. So maybe this time is helping people establish their internal motivators, which is a good thing.
Well, I kind of view all of this as a bit of a reset personally. I acknowledge my privilege in that. I know that it's probably speaking on a little bit of delicate territory because I know a lot of people are suffering. But I am blessed. We have a home, we have a yard I can get out and play in. And I am viewing this as a way to reset myself, reset my intention, my mental health, my family, and just reconnect. Yeah. And just finding the joy in the things that we're out. My kids are outside playing tennis right now on the street. It's just, everyone's just reconnecting again. And it's quite lovely.
I love that. Yeah. I think that is just an absolutely like beautiful summary of our whole conversation and a great place to end. I really like that. And good for you. Good for you for finding, the positive side of it. And as you said, we are a similar position where we feel very lucky for the position we're in. And I know a lot of people are really struggling right now. So, we should be very thankful.
Very thankful. Yeah.
Sommer, you're awesome. This has been so fun. Yeah, we'll do it again because that was great. You have lots of great insight, so thank you.
Come from the best.
Okay,
Like
take
Master
care.
says. Yeah, thanks, Jazz.
Okay,
Okay, talk to you soon.
bye.